Hello and welcome to Follow Everton. This Chris that's been known as Aussie Chris has moved again. I'm now out of an office setup, still kind of makeshift in Perth, Australia. It's 11:30 at night, and it was only about 5 to 10 minutes ago, Corey. We had the announcement for the lineup. So what do we have?
So looks like the standard 4-2-3-1 we've gone with for all season. Tarkowski partnered by Michael Keane, obviously Branthwaite out. Ashley Young at left back, James Garner's at right back, Decore, Mangala in the central midfield, Dwight in the number 10, and Jack Harrison has got the nod over Lindstrom, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, of course, as expected, lead of the front line.
Yeah, so in some ways, not too surprising. We have a whole lot of historical frustrations with Michael Keane. In some ways, he's been playing okay, and at the same time, he's prone to not watching his tail end and letting sloppy goals come through him. But I think it's a combination in that central pairing without the likes of Jared Branthwaite. What was it? Was it a calf strain, a thigh? What was the injury again? I know that it kind of been
It
rumored through.
reported as a quad injury. Apparently, nothing related to his previous injury, just something picked up. To be honest, if there wasn't an international break or if it was probably a big important game, I reckon he'd probably play. But with the international break coming up, I think
Mhm.
Gates just doesn't want to risk him, so he's taking the easy approach.
Yeah, and lucky for us in a sense, Alexander Isak is out again, as well as Callum Wilson. So we have our favourite prodigal son who thinks he's bigger than Everton. He scored a goal last week against Man City to play spoiler in Anthony Gordon coming in. But they're a little bit weak up front as well. They're not as big bodied as they can be. But how do you think? What are you worried about from a Newcastle standpoint? How do you think they're going to score today?
The pace is the most important part. Murphy not the quickest, but Harvey Barnes, Gordon, Murphy to an extent, they've all got a little bit of pace. They've got a lot of trickery. Something which I'm very concerned about with Michael Keane. You're a lot more assured when Branthwaite's there. He's got a good
Mhm.
turn of pace. He doesn't struggle with fast players. So unless we go a really low block, which again I also don't want to see, I think we're going to see actually Anthony Gordon and Harvey Barnes really struggling to get to grips with this pacey front three of Newcastle's. Doesn't help James Garner, who I think is much better at central midfield than he is at right back. They're
Mhm.
going to really stretch the back line. I think there's going to be times where it's going to be really, really nervous watching for Evertonians.
Yeah, I think so too. And I know Gordon he can kick well with both feet. But he is right-footed. What I could actually see is Anthony Gordon trying to find that uncomfortable channel where Mangala, okay, he's good on the ball. He's not as physical. Michael Keane is flat-footed quite often, and Ashley Young doesn't have sprint pace anymore. So I see that being a way to target between him and Jacob Murphy. Ashley Young's handled himself quite well, all things considered the last few weeks because they haven't had wingers with pace to test him. But I think this is a match where Gordon and maybe Murphy doesn't have the same pace as Gordon, but that side I think is where we're really going to get scared. Harvey Barnes, we've talked about back in his Leicester days, being quite a dangerous one. So Ghana has to really be paying attention and listening to Decore and James Tarkowski to make sure he's positioned himself well.
Yeah, I think Lewis Hall as well at left back. He's played a good season so far. I think he's a really good player, especially for his age. He will get down that line. I think that's partly the reason why Jack Harrison has come in. Obviously, no Patterson, no Ashley Young because he's on the left, no recognised right back essentially. So Jack Harrison will be picked over Lindstrom, mainly to double up on that side and protect James Garner, especially with, like I said, Lewis Hall driving forward as well with Harvey Barnes.
Yeah, and to I get a couple points here. So welcome to some of the regulars, Mr. Blue Skies. Thank you for posting the lineups. We've linked the subs down here. So Sonny brought up no point even watching. Keane's that bad. I'm just worried about back post shenanigans because we've been prone to not watching our back post, and Mykolenko struggled mightily against a pretty small right wing back last week and got away with it. To David B's question, Mangala is on loan from Olympic Lyon, so there's going to be no kind of cup ties or concerns there, but he is on loan. To say we take a draw tonight, I think we'll hold those predictions for later. But yeah, I think more broadly, to Peter Duggan's point, and I think we're all kind of feeling it again. How are we not? We spent all this money, and our backline is just looking tragic and about 3 years too old.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit of mismanagement in the transfer window, but we've had a bit of bad luck. Look, we were counting on Branthwaite coming back. He's come in, he's hit himself. You can't account for that. James Garner at right back. We've got 3 right backs in the team. One's covering left back for our first choice left back, who's also struggling. So I know a lot of people have give stick to the likes of Kevin Felwell for not prioritising the defence, but I can understand to an extent focusing a bit more on attacking, on pace, which we've just got very, very unfortunate in kind of taking that risk.
Yeah, and I think honestly, last year we struggled so much to get any goals, and all of a sudden we open up, we're scoring goals, but we're leaking a whole bunch as well. So I think that's the challenge for us now is how do we get that balance, because we proved we could do it last year and keeping it tight at the back, but it's just really not looking like it. So you were saying about not much you can do at right back. What are your thoughts on the Roman Dixon experiment? Is it only at worst case scenario we don't want to bring him in for a match like this, or would you have preferred Dixon to Garner today?
I'd prefer Dixon. I'd like to keep Garner as either playing in central midfield, that I'd probably play him over the Corey today. And I'd also, if not, like to keep him as an option from the bench. I think we've struggled so far this season late on in games. That's when the midfield really starts to get overrun and they get tired. So just being able to bring on 2 central midfielders in Garner and, let's say, Eric Boonham if need be, or Idrissa, would be a massive help late on. I also think just play a right back in the right back position. Yeah, he's young, but if you play someone like Jack Harrison and just drill it into him, you have to come back to support him, which he's going to do with James Garner anyway. We should at least do as well as he would do with James Garner and offer a bit more going forward as well. And it's good to see a young player get a game as well.
Yeah, I mean, Roman Dixon has done not much wrong at all other than not being trusted. But that piece of it, well, we know what we want. We want Dixon with his blistering pace to keep Lewis Hall kind of nervous and on his toes instead of just pressing up against Garner and giving a lot of challenges defensively. We know Jack Harrison can do some defensive work, but going forward, he did have a good cross. He started to cross on his right foot and set up McNeil for last week. So there's I think knowing that we have a Mangala and Decore midfield, it's not the common midfield we're used to. To me, it brings up the question that Peter Duggan brought up as well. So Tonali has stopped gambling. He's still gambling. We haven't been able to prove a new line for him yet, but he's back after serving that suspension. They have Joel Linton, who's a striker turned midfielder, and the deep line playmaker who likes to sit back just in front of the back four and dictate play, in Bruno Guimaraes. What do you think is a way that we can take these guys on? Because Tonali is a box-to-box. Joel Linton, I'm not really sure how you'd call him, but he will definitely be quite physical in the middle there. Do we think do we need to think about having Jack Harrison taking on Joel Linton? What do you think that'll match up as? Or do you believe what Peter's saying, that we get steamrolled in the middle?
The concern is definitely there. That's why I personally would like to have played James Garner in the central midfield position. I just think he's a bit more positionally aware than Abdoulaye Doucouré is. Now, look, he's not as physical, but sometimes you just need to stay defensive and not let them go through. When the game becomes stretched, which is what happens with Doucouré, he's like a master of chaos. That's when their pacey, physical runners through midfield are going to dictate and steamrollers, as Peter Duggan said. The only other way we can combat that, like you mentioned there, Jack Harrison will probably tuck into the midfield. Dwight McNeil will press. We just need to make sure that he presses at the right time. Iliman Ndiaye will work hard, but potentially you could see us moving to a 4-4-2 off the ball. And Ndiaye up a little bit with Calvert-Lewin and Dwight McNeil and Harrison making a narrow forward in midfield potentially.
Yeah, and I think that's been quite common that we 4-4-2 out of possession. At times, when we're trying to hold a lead, I have seen us play 4-4-1-1, but that's usually when we seem to be dying on our backsides. We haven't subbed anyone. It's minute 80, and all of a sudden Beto's coming on for DCL, and then Jai is being subbed, and you're wondering, are we going to hold on to a lead? So, but I agree, we need to have some numbers up there because yes, Newcastle have all the ability to take us out. 2 years ago or 2 seasons ago, they ripped us a new one, but that was an Isak moment. And last year, Kieran Trippier, who's starting again today, had an absolute shocker, and we scored two again solely because of him. So we have been able to unsettle the Newcastle squad. Who do you, when we're talking about press, do you think do we need to have 4 players up and having Mangala and Decore kind of supporting there, or who do you think is going to be the one doing a lot of the additional chasing with DCL? You think it will be McNeil?
I think possibly McNeil and Ndai. Like I said, I think it's not going to be as much about a high press game today. I think Harrison and Dwight McNeil will potentially tuck in with the 2 central midfielders, and then McNeil may press, Ndai may press, but it's going to be fairly half-hearted. It's not going to be the same intensity that caused them issues with Kieran Trippier last season. I think we'll hope that we can play on McNeil and Ndai on that left-hand side, putting pressure on Trippier and maybe target him. For me, I think it's going to be a case of hold on, try and get a draw to late on, and potentially turn things around with your substitutions late on. That's what I think. The classic Sean Dyche game is what we're really looking at.
So if that's the case, what subs, if we are playing a low to mid block, so instead of just saying we give them the entire half, we have a pretty compact 4 or 5 out of possession and making it tough once you reach kind of that the other side of the center circle. What are we gonna how and we are 0-0 at 70 minutes. What substitute do you feel is a difference maker for us right now?
Lindstrom's the main one. He struggled last week, but if he's a player that you come on when you need some impetus, especially late on because he's got pace, tired legs, could certainly do that. Lewis Hall is still young, so he may be out of position potentially. Dan Burn is massive, but he's not rapid. And Beto as well. You've seen his goal last season, the third one, when he just got around the back line, and he's got a little bit of pace in him. So they'd be the 2. Obviously, Harrison and Calvert-Lewin off potentially. It's all hypotheticals, but that's likely what I'd see going on today, late on, if we were 0-0 or 1-0 down.
Yeah, I think Beto's certainly got, I wouldn't call it acceleration, but he's got general speed. So it's how do we time his runs and get that train moving at 80% speed, but with a nice through ball. I think Ilman and Jai is the one to do it. And Trippier is quite often quite advanced on that side, so maybe it is that channel there with Tonali and Trippier, and they're trying to overload, and we get them on a counterattack, something like that.
And they're the kind of balls that Dwight McNeil in the number 10 role could potentially slide through. I mean, we know the lad's one-footed, but he's got a fantastic pass on him. He's got a great left foot. So if he's playing a nice weighted through ball, it's the kind of thing that Beto is going to want to feed off as opposed to back the goal. That's where he scored pretty much all his goals for us, is him running through.
Yeah, he's quite comfortable, almost in a right central midfield position, running in on goal towards the middle, and that's very much where that wonder strike last year was. Looks like they're refreshing the view here, so give us a moment. There we are. So, Mr. Blue Skies, when talking about how we can potentially get at them today, I think we can have some joy against Dan Burn. He's incredibly slow. Problem is our defense though. Absolutely agree. Our defense is a worry. I do agree. Dan Burn. What's interesting is he's often played left back, so you'd have to imagine he's a little bit better positioned to play centre back. But he's a better left back than a centre back from when I've watched him. But then again, I'm not a Toon Army devotee to watch enough matches to say otherwise.
Yeah, he has had some good games at the left back, despite his size and the belief that most big men are going to be slow, which he's not the fastest. But Newcastle it's the tactics and the way they shape up. They've played well around that. I think if you're playing 4-4-2 and he moves from left centre back to left back, then you might have a bit of a maybe different scenario, because they wouldn't have practiced that in training. Whereas when he was previously left back, they were very well drilled in that. So sometimes, same with Ben Godfrey, he had pace, but he really wasn't a fullback. But when we played with him under Ancelotti, we were that strong because it was well drilled and you were tactically good enough.
Yeah, I'm just doing a quick scroll on the screen here to look at some of the impact players that could come on from the bench. Almiron, as a wing player, can be. Well, he hasn't. He was excellent for this little purple patch a couple of years ago. A runner that hasn't had been much of a goal threat. Lloyd Kelly's been around. Livramento is a fullback replacement, depending on how either Lewis Hall or Kieran Trippier are doing. Joe Willock and Longstaff are more through the middle. But I think they're, relatively speaking, limited on dangerous attacking options off the bench right now. A lot of them are going to be more hard-working journeymen through the midfield, or if Almiron all of a sudden changes form there. Do you know if any of these are well-known centre halves? I don't recognise. Maybe
Emil
Emil
Kraft is a centre back.
Okay.
Not exactly spectacular. He's Premier League level, but he's nothing spectacular at all. He probably would get into our team over Keane. But again, it's probably neck and neck. He's not not much of a fantastic centre back.
Yeah, because Botman, of course, is really a big hit for them, and Lascelles was their normal, I guess, third option that came in from time to time and captain last season. So with both of them out, Dan Burn is the hybrid or third or fourth choice centre half, and Kraft, I guess he's like fifth or sixth choice. So maybe it's a matter of very seldom do centre halves get swapped out, but really they're lacking a bit of depth and height outside of Burn in the middle. Do we think for our way of scoring, we've talked about maybe going through the channels and hoping for goal scoring opportunities late on? How do you see us having any opportunities through set plays, or do you think Newcastle are going to hold us at bay there?
I can't see us scoring from a set piece. No more so than usual anyway. It's one of our best ways of chances of scoring in general, but it's not where I'm looking at thinking, you know what, we're definitely going to have these on toast in terms of set pieces. Like I said, Dan Burns a big lad. Nick Pope's a good keeper as well. He commands that box really well. It's one thing he doesn't struggle with. It's not a weakness of his. And again, they've got a lot of intelligent players. Joe Linton, physical. Bruno Guimaraes and Sandro Tonali, intelligent. So although they might be physical, they'll know their job role. They'll be tactically astute. It'll be drilled into them. For me, it's a counter-attack. It's a ball slip through late on is the only way I really see something. Unless there's mistakes. Defensive mistake would lead us to get through. That's it for me, to be honest.
Yeah, because Newcastle, we know what they were like a couple seasons back. They were hit and miss last season, all about that kind of quote-unquote energy. They seem to have, taken on City as they did. I either feel like we're down 3-0 in 30 minutes, or it's somehow game on and what I'm seeing on paper is actually not real. But I really like a lot of the comments in the chat here. Ryan has coming on and made a comment through his Twitter channel and agreed. What's really going on? Doucouré is quite capable at covering and intercepting, but is he truly good at tracking back? I'm really surprised that Idrissa Gana Gueye isn't given an opportunity, because in terms of being a clever person that will press up, intercept, and turn the ball over, he's more effective at it. Do we really need a fourth sort of attacking midfielder? I would say no, and Doucouré gives the ball away quite often, so you're really asking Doucouré to play defensive, but Gueye's a better defender. You said you would prefer Ghana over Doucouré, but right on a match like this, based on who we have, would you prefer someone? Do you think having 8 and 16 as your two DCL central midfielders, is that the right call, or who would you prefer in this scenario?
James Garner or Idrissa to be the two main ones. I'd potentially even prefer Eric Boonham over Doucouré. We just need to be defensively strong, considering the issues we've got at the moment in terms of being very thin at the back. We need positional awareness. And although Eric Boonham does lose the ball because he tries to go forward, he still sits in that pocket and he's tidy. Same with James Garner. Idrissa Gana Gueye the same. We want that defensive stability. We want to be stalwart. Otherwise, like I mentioned earlier, I can see them running riot, even if they score or not, but they'll certainly put us under a lot of pressure without that. without that player in the middle.
Yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of runners, and Bruno Guimaraes will do his best. Andrea Pirlo sitting back and doing excellent distribution, so we need someone to sit on him. I've said that a few times and doesn't seem to happen, and he impacts us every time. A lot of people stressed and frustrated about the lineup here, as we're saying. So hope Peter's doing okay. Sounds like he had a rough Wednesday. For Steve G, I could see that happening. I think Michael, if he runs at Michael Keane, anything can happen. I can't see a scenario that Tarkovsky actually gives away a penalty or it's a poor decision by the referee. I could also see Gordon just running headfirst into his shoulder and falling on the ground and it being quite entertaining and Goodison loving it. But that's only if we're not already down 2-0 in the first 20 minutes based on a shaky lineup right here.
Yeah,
So
I mean, if I'm a betting man, I'm putting money on a lot of fouls, especially won by Anthony Gordon. I can see a penalty being scored. I can see Gordon being the man to take that. James Tarkovsky is not shy of a rash challenge. Michael Keane is calamitous. Ashley Young as well, especially when exposed to pace, he really struggles. And again, James Garner, midfielder playing fullback. Decore, not exactly lacking in clumsiness. So I can definitely see a lot of fouls, potentially set piece, free kicks, goals, and a penalty would not surprise me either.
Yeah, I'm quickly checking some of the scores around the matches as we go along here. So Arsenal are up 3-1. We have Brentford who are making Wolves look terrible defensively. They're up, looks like either 5-2 or 5-3. We have Leicester up 1-0 against Bournemouth, so problems there. Man City have been in quite a tough arm wrestle with Fulham, but they are up 3-2. And we have West Ham putting Ipswich to the sword in a 4-1 result. And Crystal Palace weren't able to do the business, and Liverpool kept a clean sheet away at Crystal Palace. So those are some of the scores. Any of those really surprising to you at the moment, or or any of these fixtures most nerving for you?
Leicester maybe. Every other team around us, Crystal Palace, Ipswich, they're struggling. Southampton with another loss. Although they do seem like they can get goals. Southampton, they just look like the kind of team that's never going to be able to push on to kind of win games. They look like a team that maybe be able to play some good football and compete, but will just keep losing games. They'll definitely go down in my eyes. Leicester beating Bournemouth, that's probably the most worrying one. Teams are going to get wins throughout the season, and they've shown against us that they're not the best away from home. They just were fortunate that we capitulated against them. But yeah, them 3 points for Leicester is important, considering that they're probably one of our biggest competitors for going down.
Yeah. Flash was bringing up a point about Decore being a dunce. I really don't rate Decore all that highly. When he does have a lot of energy and he's box to box, he can be impactful. The only thing I was saying about Decore is when it comes to tracking back, I would prefer to Eric Boonham going forward, but there have been a few scenarios, and granted, it's usually when Eric Boonham is really wiped out and quite fatigued at the end of matches, but the tracking back on his runners, that did happen against Bournemouth. But do I think Decore is great? I think he's getting a step further back each year, and when it's all about physicality for someone, if he can't run and doesn't have the energy he used to, he's just a relatively speaking crumbling footballer. So if to say that I think too highly of him, I'm not sure, but the only reason I'm saying that is he has a big body, and if we're lacking big bodies, and we seem to be struggling at set plays a lot this year, I'm not sure, relatively speaking, what would like. I don't know. We've been given away, and for those that do watch The Athletic or read The Athletic, Patrick Boylan did a really good piece a day or so ago talking about how Everton's set up on corners and set plays. They will often have a back post, a front post, and they'll have at least two large bodies in that central area right by the penalty spot or between the keeper and the penalty spot blocking crosses. and then you have a lot of players trying to block the runners and cut momentum running in. But Doucouré is an extra body if Michael Keane is out of position. Taki is there as well. You need some bodies that can basically not just get pushed over. And I think Gana Gay's going to struggle on set plays. So how do we get our height back after losing Onana? So that's one of those that I haven't really thought heavily on, but is the lack of Onana when it comes to defensive solidity on set plays actually something we haven't really dug into?
I shouldn't think so. We've got a generally large team still. We have lost Onana, who was a big player, but we've still got a relatively large team. Our centre-backs especially. I think they were the biggest part of it last season. I just think with Branthwaite being out, there's a bit of lack of confidence and a lack of faith. And the difference in football is literally minor, partial percentages in confidence. If you have a split second of doubt as you go into a ball, then the other team's got that split second, and that's how they outjump you. That's how they get first to the ball. I think that's just very much a part of it. With a threadbare defence, certainly our most important one, and Jared Branthwaite is out, and a man who, whether it's through the players on the pitch or through the fans, and then that translates to the pitch, Michael Keane inspires a lack of confidence. And I just think it's things like that are the differences, they're marginal things when it comes to defending set pieces. For me, it's not, in my eyes, missing one player at 6'4", who he was a nuisance in the air, but I wouldn't say he was the kind of guy who was getting to absolutely everything, if you know what I mean. That was more the defenders doing that.
Yeah, and I will, I'm kind of bringing these comments up because in a way, in terms of size, and he certainly had it. He's doing a lot more for Villa going forward than he ever did for us, but we always knew he had potential there. But you're right. I think part of what we've been talking here is we think highly of Tarkowski based on the last couple of years, but it seems if you've watched, I don't know how old you are, if you watched like the Mighty Ducks as a kid, but they had this scene where like they basically told all the players to pick up the loose trash and just like get it out of the right in front of the goal mouth. And I feel like we're a lot of times bumping into each other. It just accidentally, oh, how did that happen? But it always happens to us. So there's these little intangibles that we seem really not to have a grasp on right now. It's partly, oh, it happens, but if it keeps happening to us, there's something. Are we just unluckily special, or what is that like secret sauce that we need to get back to? Maybe it's just Branthwaite's anticipation. He was excellent last week, and especially maybe not just talking aerially, but you could see him making these interceptions, not breaking out of position, cutting into the midfield and helping intercept and win the ball back. I don't see that with Michael Keane. I think he looks afraid to overcommit just in case he's out of position. So he doesn't feel confident. I don't think that helps the entire group gel. On the ball, he's relatively comfortable and can be quite excellent with distribution, but he just looks nervous to put a foot wrong.
Yeah, and again, I think it's confidence. The reason we see him do so well going forward is he's away from his own goal. He's probably not thinking about the danger of someone scoring against him. He's in the other box. He's probably a lot more confident. He's got no nerves, and he's just striking the ball hard. He's striking it true. No concerns, confidence in doing it. And that's probably the difference between him hitting it straight, getting first the ball, going straight through it, is purely that 1%, 2% bit of confidence, that little bit of indecision that he's lacking going forward. Defensively, it's the other way around. And it seeps into the other players as well. If you think this player's bad luck or this player's not very good, or even, like I said, with the fans when he's on, they'll get nervous whenever it's Michael Keane playing. So that'll seep in, especially when the fans start oohing and ahhing. I'm guilty of it when he plays as well, because you panic when he's defending a ball. And if that gets onto the players, again, it's only minor amounts, but they're the marginal differences, aren't they?
Yeah, it's one of those old sailing quotes, if I believe it correctly. It's like a lady on a boat is bad luck, but over here it's Michael Keane as a bad luck charm.
That's it. And it's, I think, like a lot of football these days, with how closely matched the teams are, it's mental. It is. It's that little edge you get from the mental side of things that can make a difference. goal scorers in fine form. When a player starts getting on a roll and starts scoring, everything they touch goes in. We've seen that with Dominic Calvert-Lewin in the past. We're seeing it at the moment with Ollie Watkins. He got that one goal, and then from there, he's through. It's a lot of it is confidence in my eyes.
Yeah, and confidence is everything. The man of the moment for us has to be, well, there's a couple people that are in red hot form, but Dwight McNeil, most recently, he's been talked about all week by his creative, either expected assists and expected goal involvement. He got 2 in a week. Do you feel like Dwight McNeil's going to continue that form? Is it a flash in the pan? Or more broadly, who do you see scoring for us? I know you were generally saying that you think it's going to be late on. Do you think it's going to be someone in our starting lineup that's going to make an impact, or only substitutes?
Yeah, I mean, if it's early on, then yeah, potentially. Iliman Ndiaye, if he doesn't get brought off this time, he's certainly got that magic, especially if he can twist Kieran Trippier in and out. Fabian Schär, in my eyes, can be quite rash as well. So if any side, it'll be that left-hand side. Otherwise, it'll be substitutes Lindstrom or Beto. McNeil he's a patchy kind of footballer. We've seen it last season and the season before that at the back end. Once he starts getting on a run of form, he's brilliant. You can't touch him. So hopefully it continues. If this number 10 role is more involved as well, that might then extend that kind of run of form for him. Hopefully it does, because we need creative outlets in this team.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed watching Iliman Ndiaye. He's not exactly the same player as a famous South African in Steven Pienaar, but there are similarities of similar build, ability to turn on a dime and interact with their players, like their fellow fullbacks. But I think Pienaar was a little bit more wide midfielder rather than winger cutting through. But I really enjoy his creativity, and I think right now he's probably our flashiest player. And you're saying Dwight McNeil has been picking up some good spots. I think DCL has gone under the radar in terms of he scored a couple times this season, but as a target man, for a little while ago, we were talking, okay, he doesn't seem to want to be here anymore. Just get him out of the club. You're seeing, relatively speaking, more committed DCL making those runs, and there has been whispers and rumors without anything formal that they're discussing maybe bringing up a new contract proposal to DCL. Have you heard that one as well?
I have, yeah. I think it's been bubbling for a while. It's probably being brought up again with the Freaking Group. Maybe people, whether it's true or not, connecting dots that they'll come in, change fortunes, and that's a positive for Dom. I like him. I do think we could do with someone next to him who's more prolific. Hopefully Chimiti is that guy, because I don't think Dom is a natural goal scorer. He's brilliant in terms of what he does. He fits our system very, very well. I'm happy that we've kept him, especially as I don't think there is alternatives out there we could have got that would do as good of a job, considering the budget, time constraints, etc. It's important that we just keep going. And then, look, if he signs a contract with us, fantastic. If not, we've had a full year to plan for it. And look, if you've got a full year to plan and put in place, you should then be able to create a budget that's appropriate for getting the best player that you need.
Yeah, and I think for right now, if we can extend him and he wants to stay, one of the best things that Dyche has done, other than, and granted, Dyche is not the only person accountable here. It's all the players and the finance to even fund our threadbare squad. But we've stayed up for a couple of years now. But DCL has started to not be injured through the Dyche campaign. So there's a working relationship and probably trust between the gaffer and DCL that he actually protects him, didn't rush him back, talked about getting the bed that fit him correctly, and protected him when he got a broken cheekbone that wasn't on him, and tried to bring him back in the squad. So I think DCL, as long as he's feeling that he's given the opportunity to play and getting better service and delivery, we have more creative players than we did last season. So maybe that's just enough of an incentive for DCL to want to play.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope there's a little bit of goodwill, some money in the bank there in regards to Dom's opinions towards us, especially with Sean Dyche. But then you've also got to look at it to think, is he upset because he's not getting much in terms of feeding to him because we play a very negative style? It could go either way. I'm not going to pretend to know. It could be positive when the feeding group comes in, because he might think, sound, we're going to get money in, we're going to get creative players who are going to feed me. But on the flip side, it could be, well, they're coming in, Deitch isn't going to stay. Why would I stay for someone who is someone new who might not even want me? He's the one who has got the goodwill towards, potentially. Some of our fans have booed him. I don't know what his true feelings are on the club. I can see positives, but I can certainly see negatives, and I could understand him wanting a fresh start.
Yeah, no, I do too. I think if GCL actually hits back to that potential we saw a few years ago, maybe he is maybe he is a top basically any club in the top 1 to 8 of the Premier League. Maybe look for let's say Arsenal. They've got what's his name now? Kai Havertz has been doing quite well, but let's say he falls off the boil and they're looking for someone other than a kind of lower or smaller body and a Gabriel Jesus. Maybe you want someone more as a target man. So there's a few clubs that you feel like he could do well at, but for right now, I'm happy to keep him, and he's been doing well, so happy for him there. And I think what we will also talk about, we're pretty disappointed at let's call it the back six, not including Pickford here, but I feel it's very thin, and we have better ways to line up that we haven't taken advantage of. But up front now, we have Dwight McNeil, who, to Peter Duggan's point, we've seen him go off and on a lot, but he seems his best form last year was when he would dive into the middle and give all that space to Vitaly Mykolenko on that left wing in the second half of the season. So now playing him central, he's been a lot more involved for goals this year. And Iliman Ndiaye is quite comfortable coming into the middle as well. So they can kind of alternate positions. Harrison's ambidextrous. So he's relatively good for an opposite. He's a left footer naturally, but he's okay on his right. Not going to go too far, but after watching McNeil as a winger, anyone that has an opposite foot that can cross seems good. But to my point here is we've invested up front. We also have Lindstrom as well. So we have a lot more goal scoring now this year, it seems, pretty early on to incentivize someone like a DCL to actually want to stay. And there's a lot more chances, and we are converting so far.
Yeah, I think the hard part, to be honest, is going to be at the end of the season. We are obviously Harrison on loan, Mangala's on loan, but mainly going forward. Harrison on loan, Calvert-Lewin leaving. It's up in the air about Beto. Lindstrom's on loan. So we'll potentially need to put a lot of money into that team. I'm hoping that Harrison, especially if Leeds don't come up, will want to play for us. I think he'll know that he needs to put a bit more of a shift in this time if he wants to come to Everton as opposed to stay at Leeds. So hopefully he puts that graft in. I do think he's hard working, just lacks a little bit of je ne sais quoi. And Lindstrom, I hope he really puts that shift in. I hope he really wants to prove himself and get a move to us permanently at the end of the season.
Yeah, it's been interesting watching him play because he's getting himself in some excellent positions and just not converting his chances. He's had some golden ones. But at the same time, Jack Harrison is less likely to put himself in that position, while also Lindstrom doesn't track back as much as Harrison. So it really depends what type of game we want to do. And I think on a game like today with Harvey Barnes coming in on the left, I think Jack Harrison helping out James Garner is going to be quite necessary. But on matches like last week, where the wingers weren't really that much of a threat, that's when we can get away with having Lindstrom. So maybe it's a matter, as you were saying, 70 minutes on, Lewis Hall's getting a bit tired. Joel Linton has been running around all match, being quite physical and bossing through the midfield. Maybe all of a sudden there are gaps. We're down by a goal and we need to take a risk, take a punt. That's maybe when Lindstrom comes on.
Yeah, like I said, 60-odd, 70 minutes, bring him on. Give him plenty of time to get into the game, by the way. Don't bring him on with 10 minutes to spare. And again, just getting behind a potentially tired team, especially if it's still level late on. The game will open up a little bit more. Probably when Decore probably come into his own and when you want to bring him on if he wasn't starting. But that is, in my eyes, that's the only way I can see with the way this team is the only way I can see this game going is a lot of pressure from Newcastle early on. us holding on for dear life, essentially. And then if it is level or close late on, putting pacey players in, just try and get behind them, try and get that goal. A proper smash and grab.
So I will. So we've got the Come On You Blues, or Koib, talking about the backline never fails us, expecting the fast players like Gordon to expose Slokeen and Tarky. So knowing that we understand that is the lineup we have, and that Tarkovsky and Keane are slow, there's a couple options here. One, we play a low block, or two, we play more of an offside trap, and I don't think that's a recipe for disaster, knowing the relationship Tarky and Keane have. So the third option is Pickford more comfortable coming outside the box, either on set plays or playing, being able to quickly intercept and clear some of these through balls? Because for me, Pickford seemed quite flat-footed for a lot of the set play chances, and I haven't been kind of noticing that he's been like flat off his line to kind of, let's say, intercept a through ball for Gordon. But I think that could be something to consider today, is Pickford has to be on his toes, ready to kind of sweep in, let's say.
Yeah, I do think we'll play fairly low, but Pickford, I think he's happy to play sweeper keeper. I think he likes it. It probably suits his game because he's very good on the one-on-one. He can come on, he can put players off. We've seen it before where he's been essentially the last line of defence, clearing the ball as opposed to making a save. Wouldn't surprise me if that happens a lot today, but if it happens enough times, which this team can expose us to, we could be in trouble. I could see us cutting us through with that way, essentially.
Yeah. So I think we've got, what are we? It's I've got my time zone wrong. Is it 5:12 over there in the UK? 5:13.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's officially midnight for me over here, but I'm 8 hours ahead of you guys or something. So, or 7. So it means we've probably got, we'll probably end in about 10 minutes or so everyone can get prepped either to the match or getting themselves feet up on the sofa or hiding in your closet and hearing the radio telecast. But until then, let's do some predictions. And those in the chat, why don't you let us know either first scorer, who do you think predict the man of the matches, or even just what do you think the score is going to turn out? So I guess we'll start with you, Corey. What do you feel?
I'm really sorry to say. I'm really sorry to say this, but I think it'll be Gordon. To be honest, I wouldn't rule out a 1-1 with a late goal, but certainly first goal will go to Newcastle if there is one, and I think it'll be Anthony Gordon.
So
pains me.
Yeah. Sometimes if you are negative and worst case scenario thinking of what's going to piss you off the most, and then all of a sudden you call it out, then it won't happen. Or if you deep down you're not talking about it and you hope it doesn't happen, that's when that really gets you. So, but on the flip side, we have a little bit of positivity, which is nice to see. Is it irony? I'm not sure, but Keane is he'll surprise us from time to time with it. Maybe a scramble in the box and he keeps his composure, which he does quite well. But all positive things must come to an end, because Sinem thinks we lose 3-1. Because what's been quite interesting is Everton, we can't hold a lead, but now we can come back from being down. But that was only a one-off, so I'm not sure that's a trend yet.
Well, I'm not going to take credit for that with the Gordon first goal scorer, but hopefully that's the case. And if we do get anything out of it, we'll come back.
Yeah. So Peter is thinking 5-2. You can say sorry to us, but I am about as cynical, just a slightly different score here. And yeah, Peter, really hoping the recovery there goes well. That didn't sound great at all. For Come On You Blues squared, we have 3-2, but this time for us. So positive here. And I think I can't see a match, and granted, this is when it's 0-0, isn't it? I just can't see a scenario where there's no goals scored today. I really think it's going to be quite open, and we're going to get overrun in the middle, and we'll have some they'll have some sloppy opportunities that we can take advantage of. We'll see. We'll see. But 3-2, I like the positivity. For Kazuri, goes by Cash. Thinks DCL to score. He's our number 9. Newcastle wanted
if it was
him.
the other way
I've
round,
shown why.
yeah. Kazuri, if it was the other way around, then I'd say it's guaranteed to be on because it'd be very, very Everton. I don't see it this time, but if it was the other way around, I could imagine that happening. It'd be a proper Everton scenario.
So, Mr. Blue Sky is not a man of my heart or a person of my heart, but I feel that was my prediction for the score today. The second I heard that we basically had a shaken up back line, I feel that we probably are down 1 or 2 goals in the first 30 minutes. We fight back to 2-1, and then they basically squared away at 3-1 there. But anything is possible. We've been surprised before. This time last season when Newcastle came, the starting left back during the Euros and Kieran Trippier had his worst match that I can recall in the Toon Army barcode shirt. And yeah, and it's not as if they're playing excellent the entire time, but they look like they're getting into form, which screams get out of the way of the moving train. But we have gotten some momentum with us, but I feel like it's very our egos and our emotions are ready to crumble at a moment's notice, and we're just looking to be upset. And in reality, it helps us protect ourselves, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're a fragile lot. I think it's just a coping mechanism, isn't it? Something that we've all developed over a long time supporting this club. But Newcastle have been okay form. There's nothing spectacular about their form at the moment. Like you mentioned about there being goals, I think they've only kept 1 clean sheet, and that was the opening day of the season against Southampton. So There are positives. There are things that we can do, especially without their strikers. Isak, who's brilliant, and Wilson, who has got a good record against us. So, look, I wouldn't say be completely negative. It's not doom and gloom, lock yourself in your bomb shelter kind of territory, but don't expect too much. I would say don't be too disheartened if we lose. Definitely don't be too disheartened if we draw. Anything can happen. Just I can't see too much of it happening.
And the other thing to remember is every time we're up, we struggle to hold a lead and we get nervous. In some ways, I know that sounds counterintuitive and we'd never want to be behind, but if we're behind by a goal, I don't think we're in any way out of this. You've got Goodison. I don't know if it's dark this early in the year over there, or if it's overcast, but
no, it's light. It probably won't get dark till probably round about the second half of the game. It'll start dropping a little bit, but it's still lightish at the moment. You'll at least play the first half. I won't say sunny, but nice grey Goodison.
So maybe we have Goodison under the lights for the second half of the Gladys Street comeback. Mate, anything's possible, right?
Yeah.
The key today from Come On You Blues, no individual brain dead moments from hot players like Keane, and stupid fouls from the like of Abdoulaye Doucouré or Ashley Young. And I think I'm going to add to that here as well. Little bits of critical thinking when we are playing zonal, but then have to mark runners and keeping tabs on your back post. Little things like that, and clearing the ball quickly and being first to the ball in your own box, I think is going to be huge for us. If we don't do that, I think we're going to lose to a hungry squad in Newcastle.
Yeah, proper Sean Dyche typified performance, hopefully. Strong at the back, organised, stay in it, late goal. I think I've just manifested it in my head. So if it does happen, you can thank me.
All right. So I think it's probably time to wrap up shop here. I was thinking about doing a watch along, but I'm also realizing it is 12:30, and I'm not sure if I'm jet lagged or where I'm at. I was at a wedding until quite late yesterday. I'll be up, and I'm likely to actually do a halftime reaction. So please keep an eye out for anyone who wants to join along there. If it's either enthusiastic dancing around, is it ranting, maybe a mixture of both. I'm expecting to do something there at halftime, but keep your eye out for that. And I believe Chad is going to be doing the post match as well. So for all your Everton content, feel free to join us here at Follow Everton. Thank you, Corey, and I'm Aussie Chris, and let's up the Toffees and let's hope for 3 points, eh?
Let's say 3 points. Let's have it, boys.